Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome to the deep dive. Our mission today is, well, it's anything but simple.
Yeah, it really isn't.
We are charting the most dangerous transformation in Genghis Khan's life. He moved from this enormous decade-long challenge of unifying the fractured tribes of
That a civil war, essentially.
exactly, a civil war, and he goes from that to the terrifying, resource-intensive, just existential task of conquering massive, settled, walled kingdoms.
Kingdoms like the Shia and the mighty Qin Empire.
And we have a stack of sources that treat this transition not just historically, but with this visceral, almost cinematic detail. They really focus on the brutal internal politics that were happening right alongside the external conquest.
Yeah, the period of, total military and psychological revolution for them. To take on Shia and Qin, the Mongols had to fundamentally change how they fought,
Everything.
how they organized, and even how they thought about the world. We're talking about acquiring advanced knowledge like siegecraft, managing impossible logistics, and crucially, redefining what power and wealth even meant.
That's a huge point.
They had to shift from a nomadic economy that valued tangible plunder, horses and slaves, to understanding the abstract value of gold, fixed cities, and complicated bureaucracy.
That is a staggering pivot for a society to make in such a short period. So what's the roadmap for this deep dive?
Well, I think we have to start with the final act of that consolidation on this step.
The defeat of the Naimans.
Exactly. And the rising, deeply dangerous internal threat posed by the Shaman Kokchu. Then we have to move into the critical Shishia campaign, which was, well, it was defined by a massive, humiliating logistical failure.
Before they figured out how to break stone walls.
Yes, and finally, we absolutely have to cover the intense internal struggles over succession and discipline, specifically the assassination attempt that almost shattered this new nation before it even truly began to expand.
Okay, a lot to cover. So to understand the scope of Genghis's eventual empire, we have to start at the end of the beginning. The defeat of the Naimans is that definitive moment of consolidation. It's him putting down the last great resistance from the old tribal system. And the sources, they paint this scene of defeat with incredible finality.
They really do. It's set on this dry, wind-scoured hill. The Naiman forces are completely broken,
Just shattered.
and the ground below them is described as being literally marked in curves and strokes of dead men, like a bloody script on the grass. It's an
Oh.
incredible image.
Wow.
The Naiman Khan himself is physically and psychologically just exhausted, lamenting that Genghis's dogs could only reach the hill over Naiman dead. It's not just a military defeat for him.
Yeah.
It's the end of a worldview marked by utter despair.
And right there, watching his master collapse, is the Naiman's powerful shaman, Kokchu. But he's not joining in the lamentation, is he?
No, not at all.
He's calculating. It's a pure survival strategy in real time.
Absolutely not. He is the ultimate opportunist. He sees his old Khan as a fool for having resisted this new inevitable force, and he's physically shivering, trying to chant this old protective charm to make the enemies turn to his side.
You can just feel the desperation.
And the internal conflict is so clear. Kokchu is terrified of his own death, wondering if murdering his own collapsed Khan with his knife.
As a show of allegiance.
As a dramatic show of allegiance, yeah. Wondering if that would somehow win him immediate favor with Genghis. He's cold, he's bitter, he's full of self-interest. But above all, he's just calculating his best move for power.
This brings us to Genghis Khan's terrifying presence. He arrives to seal the fate of the Naimans, and the sources describe him armored and ready, his steel marbled in blood.
And his sheer lack of mercy is highlighted by his wolf-yellow eyes.
That phrase, wolf yellow eyes, it appears whenever Genghis is acting with absolute clinical ruthlessness, doesn't it?
It does. And the scene with the Naiman Khan and his son Murak's son, it feels like it's designed purely to demonstrate Genghis's non-negotiable authority.
So the young warrior, he's trying to uphold the old tribal honor code.
Right, he takes a pace forward to stand between the two Khans, refusing Genghis's command to retreat.
And Genghis's reaction is just swift and absolutely chilling.
He doesn't waste energy or time. Genghis merely pushes his own sword aside and plunges a dagger straight into the young man's throat.
Wow.
And the sources dwell on the body tumbling limply down the slope. It's a calculated murder meant to show that the old rules of honor are irrelevant now.
Only the Khan's will matters.
Only that. The Naiman Khan, seeing the body of his son falling, only asks that he be sent to join them. He just asks for a clean death.
Which Genghis grants by sweeping the Khan's head right from his shoulders with his sword. The body hardly jerks.
And this is the cue for Kokchu.
Of course.
He doesn't wait for the blood to dry. He falls to his knees in this frantic, almost theatrical attempt to save himself, screaming, "You may not shed the blood of a shaman, Lord, you may not. I am a man of power. Strike me, and you will find my skin is iron."
So he's leveraging ancient superstition.
Instantly. And he switches his allegiance just as fast, claiming he saw you coming in my dreams and offering to serve Genghis to proclaim his victory to the heavens.
And instead of just executing him for being a liar and a turncoat, Genghis grants him life. This is that moment where we move past simple vengeance into pure strategic utility.
Yeah, Genghis frowns. He clearly dislikes Kokchu and asks pointedly how well the shaman served the man he just brought here to die.
A great question.
But he grants him life because he is preparing to face the Qin Empire, a power that, the sources confirm, was rumored to have workers of magic, wizards, astronomers, strange priests.
So he sees a use for him.
Genghis is pragmatic enough to realize he might need men to match them, or at least men who can perform the same kind of dark magic to counter the enemy's supernatural defenses. He integrates this incredibly potent, highly dangerous internal figure right into his inner circle.
Sacrificing his own dislike for tactical advantage. So this decision to patronize Kokchu, this symbol of treacherous opportunism, it immediately brings deep tension right into the heart of the family, right into Genghis's own skirr.
It does.
How does Kokchu begin his manipulation once he's in?
He pushes immediately into that inner circle, and his first target is Genghis's family, who recognize the danger instantly. Holen, Genghis's mother, the ultimate matriarch.
Right.
She expresses this visceral dislike for Kokchu. She comments that he carries an odor of rotting meat.
Which is a perfect nomadic indictment.
It is. It contrasts his foul smell with the healthy, if rough, odor of honest warriors. She mistrusts everything about him.
The shaman then attempts to solidify his position using a specific crisis, the severe injury of Temujin, Genghis's non-warrior brother, who is suffering from a wrenched gut or a hernia.
And this is just a masterclass in calculated psychological warfare.
Hmm.
Holen knows how to treat this injury. She's seen it many times and knows the men recover. But Kokchu immediately contradicts her authority. He claims it's a dark illness, a growth that cannot be cut out, that eats him mindlessly.
He's using medical ignorance and fear to assert control.
He has to. He knows he must impress Genghis and diminish the loyalty of the family members around him. He then binds the injury with a grubby ribbon and a piece of twisted, bloody horsehair, chanting and making this huge show of healing what he falsely claimed was a fatal illness.
Thus presenting himself as indispensable.
Precisely.
What's truly destructive, though, is the other longer-standing internal tension that Kokchu begins to leverage, the crisis of succession centered on Genghis's eldest son, Jochi.
Yes.
The sources call this mistrust, this core doubt, an iron wedge into strong wood that had grown between Genghis and his wife, Borte.
That imagery of the iron wedge is so powerful because it describes this slow, persistent, grinding force that threatens to split the core of the nation.
And the issue is Jochi's paternity.
Right. He was born shortly after Borte was captured and raped by the Merkit tribe, and while Genghis claimed him, the doubt lingered.
And it's exacerbated by a physical trait.
It is. The fact that Jochi has dark brown eyes, unlike the characteristic wolf yellow eyes inherited by his younger brothers. Genghis never openly rejects Jochi, but he subtly ignores him.
Avoids playing with him.
Avoids playing with him, refuses to publicly name him as his successor. It's a constant simmering tension.
And this mistrust explodes when his younger brother, Chagatai, screams the accusation publicly, weaponizing that family's shame.
Chagatai screams that Jochi is a Tartar bastard. And Borte, who has carried this shame and protected Jochi for years, reacts with explosive violence.
She strikes him.
She strikes Chagatai and knocks him sprawling, blood trickling from his nose. But the psychological damage to Jochi is total.
He approaches his mother in this raw, devastating heartbreak.
And he asks her,
Yeah.
he killed his brother. Does he love me at all?
That reference to his brother, that's to Bektor, Genghis's half-brother whom he executed years ago to consolidate control. The fear Jochi expresses is profound. If Genghis can kill his own blood to secure power, what does he mean to a son whose parentage is questioned?
Exactly. Jochi is terrified of being deemed a political or a personal liability. Borte, heartbroken but determined, urges Jochi toward absolute excellence.
She tells him, "You will have to be better than all the others to win your father's approval. You know it now."
And this moment, it sets up this profound, brutal internal dynamic where the Jochi's entire sense of self-worth is tied to proving himself superior to his brothers.
Not just as a man.
No, as a warrior and a potential successor. It ensures the sons will perpetually compete, which Genghis likely saw as a useful tool, though incredibly dangerous for the future.
So with the tribes consolidated and these internal threats of Kokchu and Jochi now simmering rather than boiling over, Genghis has to look outward. But this transition to the Shisha campaign it's a huge jump, from raiding tribes to assaulting stone civilization.
The scale is completely different, and it is a necessity. The unified tribes need external wealth and external enemies to prevent them from turning back on each other.
Right.
Shishia becomes the crucial proving ground for the Mongols, forcing them to learn how to fight entrenched professional armies defending stone cities. It's a massive logistical and intellectual test for Genghis.
And Genghis, despite his lack of formal education, he shows his focus on actionable intelligence immediately. We see him based in his new, massive Jurjur.
Which is now too heavy to dismantle easily.
Right, it's mounted on this huge wheeled cart pulled by 8 oxen. It's a physical sign of the slowing down and consolidation of the power center.
And that wheel Jurjur is fascinating. It signifies that shift toward a semi-permanent headquarters, acknowledging the need for more complex administration.
And he's questioning the Eiger messenger, Bartchuk, intently.
And his question to Bartchuk is laser sharp. Do these scrolls say how to take a city made of stone? He's asking for military manuals.
He wants practical knowledge.
He does. And Bartchuk's answer is a revelation about Qin culture. Their scrolls focus overwhelmingly on philosophy. Buddha, Confucius, Lao Tzu. They do not write of war, at least not in a format accessible to conquered peoples.
Genghis's snap reaction, "Then they are of no use to me," is just pure pragmatism. If the Qin aren't providing military solutions, he has to invent them or deceive them.
And since they have no tools to breach the walls, they rely on classic Mongol deception. Genghis plans this staged, elaborate route.
He sends men wearing their best armor.
Armor that is actually copied from Qin design, a detail that shows they are already adopting external military technology.
And they pretend to panic under arrow fire.
Deliberately leaving behind valuable items like swords and spears in the sand, simulating complete chaos. The men even survive the arrow fire. They're forced back with much shouting, just ensuring the enemy believes this is a genuine panicked retreat.
And the Shishi officer, Liu Ken, he falls for it because of naked greed, as the source calls it. This seems to be the one weakness Genghis always exploited in settled peoples.
Precisely. Liu Ken sends men out immediately to strip the dead, looking specifically for gold or silver. He finds it unfathomable that the tribesmen would bring such wealth, so he assumes they are carrying stolen Qin loot.
A fatal assumption.
And the Mongols execute the plan with terrifying discipline. The dead men, Subadai's young warriors among them, suddenly leap up, still bristling with shafts, seize the gate mechanism, while Genghis's main force charges in from the supposed retreat line.
Once inside the gate, however, they hit the fortified infrastructure of a settled civilization. That terrifying tight space between the inner and outer gates, the killing hole.
It's an architectural trap designed to maximize casualties on the attacking force. It's deliberately small and narrow, allowing defenders to rain down arrows, rocks, fire oil.
A nightmare.
Subadai and his men survive volleys of arrows by using wedged planks for cover.
Yeah.
The fear is palpable. Subadai thinks they'll be crushed if the defenders drop massive stones from above. They are trapped, exposed, until they finally muster the strength and discipline to break through the inner gate and unleash the army.
This first success confirms Genghis's belief. Disciplined deception is superior to static defense. And this success leads them to the plains outside Yunchuan, where they finally face the massive Shishia army under General Jam.
And Jiam is determined to destroy the Mongol dogs, right before the king's eyes.
He's not a simple foe, though.
No, he's a solid thinker. He prepares defensive traps iron spikes laid out across the plain to pierce the horse's hooves and founder the Mongol charge. His men are formed up in red ranks wearing heavy lacquered armor.
But the Mongols' counter tactic, it just shows their complete mastery of simulated chaos.
They send a small column to hit the traps, then simulate a full wild route across the entire front.
And the Shishi militia breaks rank, driven by bloodlust and arrogance.
They do. They see the enemy running in panic, and the collective bloodlust just overcomes their discipline. They ignore the signal horns blowing retreat, chasing the seemingly routed column.
And then the trap springs.
Instantly. The Mongol route vanishes, revealing perfect new Mongol lines, ready and waiting. The Shishia soldiers, now overextended and exposed far past their own defenses, are shot down into mounds of scarlet dead.
Genghis rides triumphantly through the carnage, holding General Jiam's head on a pike.
Sending an unmistakable message to Yunchuan.
They achieved total military dominance on the field, but the city walls still mock them. And Genghis, frustrated by the stone fortifications that he still can't breach, orders that famous logistical catastrophe.
The breaking of the canals. This is
Yes.
a perfect example of a brilliant commander making a colossal mistake because of a gap in his knowledge. Genghis orders his men to break the canals, hoping the mountain rivers and snowmelt will quickly flood the city and force surrender.
He watches the initial flooding with savage pleasure.
He does, but he completely fails to account for the geography or the physics of water flow on a flat plain.
So the water rises so quickly that his own camp is immediately threatened.
Right, the rising snowmelt and mud engulf their area, forcing this humiliating miles-long retreat just to save the sugars, the horses, and the supplies from being ruined.
It was a massive waste of time and resources.
And it proved that raw military force couldn't conquer civil engineering.
This must have been a huge blow to his authority, especially in front of his brothers and generals who had just won this spectacular battle.
It was a public failure, and the sources note Genghis catching the subtle amusement on his generals' faces. He is forced to admit the error to Khazar.
What does he say?
He says, "We learned, brother. So much of this is new to us. Next time, we don't break the canals. Are you satisfied?"
Wow, that's a rare moment of humility.
It is. It's him acknowledging that conquest required learning civil engineering as much as it required superb archery. It was the moment he realized he needed experts, not just warriors.
And the irony is, while the flooding threatened the Mongol camp, it completely devastated the Shishia population inside Yinchuan.
King Cheng is facing genuine collapse. His crops are rotting in the fields due to the diversion of water, meaning his people will starve come winter.
So he's executing ministers in fits of rage.
He is, and facing an impossible choice: starvation and a mob uprising, or stripping the remaining southern provinces of militia to form a new army, which would immediately surrender those provinces to bandits,
The situation is completely untenable.
which leads directly to the peace negotiations.
So the Shisha king is completely boxed in by starvation and the Mongol army, leading to the peace treaty. And this meeting outside Yinchuan is a fascinating piece of political theater.
It really is. It defines the new power hierarchy in Asia.
It's so carefully staged. Genghis meets King Cheng under a peach-colored awning, surrounded by armed Mongol guards.
And Genghis plays the diplomat, using the Shija word for majesty, showing this calculated respect to an acknowledged sovereign.
But the king's response shows who's really in charge.
Cheng addresses Genghis in halting Mongol, signifying his total unwilling submission to the conqueror. The language exchange itself conveys the shift in power.
Cheng offers massive tribute: gold, silver, silk, camels. But Genghis immediately uses this moment not to consolidate, but to leverage their desperation for his next fight.
He presses his luck right after agreeing to the tribute. Genghis states plainly, "If I am to enter the cities of the Qin, I will need weapons that will break walls."
He's demanding they hand over the technology to defeat their own civilization.
He is. And Cheng, though desperate, refuses. He maintains that one line of defense. His interpreter, Hosa, who becomes important later, nervously tells Genghis that the king would have to be a fool to supply siege weapons that could then be turned against his own allies.
So since he can't get the weapons, Genghis takes a different, highly symbolic and personal prize of tribute: the Shija princess, Chakahai, as a second wife.
And he declares her to be worth more than all the rest of your father's gifts. It is a blatant show of dominance, reinforcing the idea that the greatest tribute is the transfer of human assets and future lineage.
And the sources say he becomes intoxicated with her.
He does, noting she lacks the wiriness and harshness of his own stepwomen. But he quickly realizes the political complexity. She's too fragile and politically sensitive to survive Borte's jealousy in the main family border,
So he plans to have a separate, insulated dorder built for her alone.
which just further complicates all those internal family tensions we saw earlier.
The military necessity remains, though. They must acquire the knowledge to overcome the Qin walls, since the Shija king wouldn't supply the weapons.
And this leads to one of the most crucial strategic moves of the entire campaign. Genghis commissions a covert, dangerous deep dive mission into the Qin-controlled city of Baotu.
The team he selects shows his growing political sophistication.
It does. He sends his warrior brother Khazar, a man of blunt force, alongside his non-warrior, sort of intellectual brother Temujin. He's pairing brute strength with observation and planning.
And critically, they are guided by Hosa, the Shishia officer and interpreter who is now reluctantly in Mongol service.
They travel down the Yellow River on a small boat owned by Chen Yi, a crime boss and merchant who quickly realizes his passengers are powerful and dangerous infiltrators, not simple traders.
And I love the detail here that shows the cultural core of Khazar. He refuses to abandon his bow,
Wraps it in cloth.
declaring he wouldn't give it up not for a dozen secret river trips. He simply cannot be without his primary tool of survival.
And this commitment immediately pays off. During the journey, river thieves ambush them in the dark.
While Temujin is paralyzed by the sudden chaos and fire.
Khazar immediately stands on the prow and uses his formidable skill. He kills 6 river thieves with his double-curved bow in near-total darkness and on a rocking boat.
Chen Yi, the pragmatic crime boss, sees this firsthand.
He witnesses this ferocity and discipline, a critical piece of intelligence for him.
So the mission is a profound culture shock for Temujin, the intellectual brother, upon arrival in Baotu. He's going from the simple, rough life of the juror to the most complex civilization he's ever seen.
Temujin, despite his earlier humiliation and fear on the boat, is absolutely fascinated by Baotu. He sees paved roads, which are alien to him, endless food shops, scribes writing messages for payment, a complex, vibrant social structure.
The sheer density of the crowded life.
Khazar, in contrast, is repulsed, complaining bitterly that there are too many people and the city stinks. This dynamic perfectly illustrates the fundamental culture clash Genghis is trying to master.
Chen Yi, the wealthy crime boss, introduces them to luxuries beyond their imagination. The bath ritual is particularly telling.
They experience their first chin bath ritual hot water, male slaves scrubbing them down until they are slick and white. Khazar reacts like a completely wild man.
He's used only to cold dips in rivers.
Right, so he strikes one of the slaves who tries to wash him. It's a moment of sheer culture clash and confusion,
And they're also taught how to eat with chopsticks.
which Temujin struggles with but perseveres. Khazar gives up instantly, preferring to eat the prepared fried crickets with his hands. He finds them easier to handle than the strange sticks. It's a small detail, but it emphasizes the physical and mental gap between the conquerors and the conquered.
So Chen Yi, having witnessed Khazar's brutality and discipline, is brought into the fold. How does Genghis's reputation secure his help despite the risk?
Chen Yi tests Khazar one last time, demanding he speak the truth. Tell me again how my city will burn. Khazar assures him that Baotu is merely a stepping stone and will be spared if Chen Yi helps them.
So the Khan's word is protection.
In this case, yes. Chen Yi realizes that. He agrees, providing Lian, a master mason and civil engineer, who holds the secrets to breaking high walls.
The mission culminates in this desperate escape from Baotu after Qin soldiers are alerted, with the stakes suddenly raised to capture or death.
The group, which now includes Lian and Yao Shu, a young Buddhist monk who joins them,
Fascinated by this new force.
exactly, is trapped. They fight their way out of the city streets. Khazar, unaccustomed to fighting without heavy armor in close quarters, sustains a painful collarbone wound in the skirmish
And they manage to escape over the city wall using a rope.
and flee toward the Yellow River. Khazar is still complaining that he is too used to fighting in armor. I let the blow through.
But the mission achieves far more than just acquiring Liam, the Mason. It provides an absolute intellectual revelation for Temujin, the brother who would one day govern.
Temujin, despite the peril, is just drinking in the knowledge from Lian. He learns about universities, formal apprenticeships, and advanced civil engineering, particularly the system of sewers.
The concept of a complex, maintained underground infrastructure is completely alien to him.
And thrilling. He absorbs it all, contrasting this complex, ordered life with the simple life on the steppe, already dreaming of strolling with learned men and discussing great issues. He is gaining the intellectual blueprint for ruling a settled state.
So with the knowledge acquired from Lian, Genghis spends 2 crucial years transforming the Mongol fighting force. They move from being purely cavalry to being masters of siegecraft. What exactly did Lian bring that was so revolutionary?
The change was fundamental. Lian brought sophisticated knowledge of construction and, crucially, physics. Before Lian, the Mongols likely used, rudimentary traction trebuchets where men pulled ropes to launch projectiles.
Slow and limited range.
Exactly. Lian introduced knowledge of counterweight trebuchets, which use massive weights to launch heavier projectiles much faster and further. This required precision, mathematics, and logistical planning to transport the huge, complex frames.
So they didn't just build trebuchets, they mastered a fundamentally new way of warfare.
They did. And this shift leads right into the ultimate confrontation with the main Qin army at the Badger's Mouth Pass, a massive, narrow choke point.
But before the battle, Kokchu, still clinging to power, introduces a terrifying element of psychological warfare.
This is the strategy of the three tenths, which Kokchu suggests to minimize fighting by maximizing terror. And Genghis immediately approves because he realizes that conquered cities save time, and time is the Mongols' greatest commodity.
So the system is designed to turn surrender into a countdown clock.
Precisely. First, the white tent is raised. This signals that the city is isolated. No help is coming to save him.
Then the red tent.
Raised at dawn on the second day, a promise that every single man in the city will die.
And finally, the black tent.
Raised on the third day. It signifies death without end, without mercy. Total annihilation. The psychological effect is just profound. It reduces the enemy's will to fight.
The Badger's Mouth Pass itself is the ultimate defensive position, guarded by forts and a huge Qin army led by General Zhejiang. And Genghis faces the reality of the fortifications, and his solution here is chillingly pragmatic.
The sacrifice of his own prisoners.
Right.
He faces the logistical nightmare of thousands of starving prisoners whom he cannot feed, and the military reality of forts raining down arrows and fire oil in the narrow pass.
So he orders the thousands of Qin prisoners who had not run away to be driven ahead of the army.
Right into the pass, effectively using them as human shields to soak up the initial volleys and clear the path of fire. He justifies this horrific decision to Kachin with cold logic. It'll be faster for them than starving to death.
The efficiency of that cruelty just underscores the Mongol focus on absolute utility. So the actual battle is a combination of this frontal assault and brilliant flanking maneuvers.
Khazar, always the warrior, leads the audacious flanking attack, climbing the sheer, icy cliffs behind one of the main forts. A move so dangerous it's almost suicidal.
Meanwhile, Genghis leads the main force, driving the prisoners ahead.
And critically, Genghis also deploys Kachin and his specialized 9,000 archers to hold the line in the valley, establishing a mobile fire support unit.
And Kachin's archery unit delivers a legendary performance. It essentially shatters the Qin's conventional strength.
They face a charge of 20,000 Imperial cavalry, confident in their numbers. And Kachin's archers hold their fire with incredible discipline until the cavalry is just 200 yards away.
The ideal range for penetration?
It is. They fire volleys of 20 shafts simultaneously. The charge falters immediately, hit by what the sources call a hammer of arrows, turning the valley into a red stain of kicking hooves and flailing soldiers.
The sheer density of the fire just shatters the charge.
And Kachums continues stalking forward, continuously shooting, until the enemy is totally shattered and routed back into their own main lines.
Genghis achieves the breach only after the Qin defenders run out of crossbow bolts, confirming the power of sustained Mongol fire. He then leads the charge, cutting a path deep into the emperor's army. But this victory is immediately overshadowed by a crisis of his own mortality.
The vulnerability of the entire new nation is exposed immediately after the massive victory, while Genghis is waiting outside Yanking. An assassin, sent by General Zhejiang's demoralized forces, manages to infiltrate the camp.
And it's an important detail that Genghis's estranged eldest son, Jochi, is the first one to spot the intruder,
Shouting a warning.
This is a chance for Jochi to prove his loyalty and worth, the very thing his mother urged him to do.
It is a critical moment. Genghis confronts the assassin, who strikes him in the throat with a poisoned knife. Jochi's warning saves his life, but Genghis is down.
And Jelme, one of his most trusted generals, reacts instantly.
He throws himself onto the Khan, sucking the poison out of the wound and spitting blood onto the ground, even feeling his own lips grow numb. It is an act of ultimate, unquestioning loyalty that preserves the entire Mongol future.
And while Jelme is risking his life through physical action, Kokchu, the shaman, executes another brilliant, dazzling performance to secure his own position.
He leverages Genghis's injury, pushing through, frantically feeling Genghis's racing heart, and begins chanting loudly. He calls on ancient spirits by name, including Yesuge, Genghis's father, and the slain Bektar.
Genghis's executed half-brother.
Yes, claiming they are physically holding the Khan back from death. Calling upon Bektar is a calculated, terrifying reminder of Genghis's own ruthless past.
It subtly demonstrates Kokchu's deep, dangerous knowledge of the family history.
It does. He then tells the gathered warriors that Genghis was saved by the spirits, and Jelme, and needs rest. This public spiritual confirmation of Genghis's divine protection immediately solidifies Kokchu's power in the eyes of the warriors, who are looking for meaning in the face of their leader's near death.
But the brush with death has a profound and immediate political impact on Genghis. It forces him to face the very real fragility of his nation.
And the unresolved succession crisis.
Exactly. He realizes that if he had died, the unified nation would have instantly shattered, with the old Khans seizing power and starting a civil war.
So, weakened and coughing, Genghis demands a completely new organizational structure.
Every general, down to the lowest soldier, must name a line of succession.
A man you trust to take your place, and another to take his. This wasn't just about naming his heir. It was about ensuring leadership continuity at every level, preventing the state from being shattered by a single vacuum of power.
He also consciously splits the army and sends them campaigning, which is a brilliant political move.
It restores discipline and eliminates latent threats from the remnants of the old tribal structure.
Absolutely. He sends massive contingents away with Khazar, Jelmi, and Subadai to continue campaigning far afield. This action serves two purposes.
One, it restores discipline among the restless tribes who might have thought power. And more importantly, it physically removes old Khans and dangerous rivals from the main camp who might have seized power if he had died.
Like the Wayela Khan.
Whose sons had challenged Khazar, being isolated and left behind, stripped of his authority. Genghis uses the threat of death to create a stable, enduring bureaucracy.
And what about Kokchu? Even as he relies on the shaman for political stability, Genghis shows his deep, fundamental mistrust of him.
Genghis summons Temujin, the intellectual brother, and gives him a terrifying private order.
He must guard the camp, and he must kill Kokchu if the shaman tries to harm Genghis during a spiritual trance.
Genghis admits to his brother, "I am not a trusting man, brother." And we also see Temujin, now recognizing the ruthless side of power, discreetly stealing Kokchu's black paste medicine,
That dark narcotic substance the shaman uses to induce his visions.
showing he is learning to neutralize threats quietly, intellectually, rather than through blunt force.
So Genghis recovers, and the armies move on to the final goal, yanking the emperor's city. Before the final surrender, Kachin, the master archer, executes a devastating quick action against the heavily guarded Qin supply line.
This is the strategic perfection of the Mongol cavalry. Kachin and his men harass the heavily guarded supply column heading for Yanking for days, never closing enough for the Qin to engage fully.
They just wear them down.
Once the Qin are worn down, tired, and far from the city walls, Genghis gives the order for the final massed assault. 20,000 bows bend simultaneously.
And the Qin soldiers are struck down in an act of what the source calls betrayal.
The slaughter is total and deliberate. They shoot until it's too dark to see, destroying the city's last hope of sustenance.
Yanking finally surrenders, helped along perhaps by Kokchu's timely, if totally fabricated, prophecy that the emperor would do so.
The emperor agrees to pay massive tribute. Genghis meets with the minister, Ruan Chu, in front of the line of carts filled with silks and treasures. His dominance is total.
But he still demands to see the symbolic head of the Qin Empire. The new emperor, a 7-year-old boy named Xuan.
And the moment where Genghis asserts his dominance over the highest power in the Qin Empire is profoundly, historically humiliating for the entire dynasty.
Genghis makes the child emperor kneel before him on the open plain.
It is the supreme act of humiliation, designed to break the spiritual and political will of the entire Qin court. The boy's eyes fill with furious tears, refusing to kneel until his minister whispers that he must.
Genghis stares down at him, allowing the boy temporary peace.
He tells him, "You have bought peace for a year, perhaps 2 or 3. He tells the child to never forget this day of his total submission.
That temporary peace lasts less than a month.
Hmm.
The sources then describe the final betrayal, the one that pushes Genghis to an ultimate defining act of total ruthlessness.
A month later, an exhausted scout rides into the camp with the devastating news. The young Emperor Xuan has fled south, abandoning Yanking.
And Genghis is absolutely furious.
He sees this not just as a royal escape, but as a public declaration that the Khan's word, his foundation of sovereignty enforced at the cost of thousands of lives, means absolutely nothing. The humiliation of the kneeling ceremony has been invalidated.
That slight, that public rejection of his word, requires an enormous destructive price to ensure future obedience from all other cities.
Genghis immediately orders Kachin to take his men back and burn Yanking to the ground. That is the price I will have from him.
This act isn't about looting.
No, it is a communication tool. It demonstrates to the Qin and to every other potential foe that breaking Genghis's word leads to complete, fiery destruction. The price of perceived weakness or defiance is total annihilation.
Throughout this massive campaign, Genghis is also consolidating the philosophical bedrock of the new nation, exemplified by the brutal leadership lessons he gives his own sons.
Before sending his sons off with the campaigning generals, he subjects them to a ruthless lesson in power and survival. A leader, he emphasizes, must embody ruthless discipline
They must hide their fear, never speak of tiredness.
and put down anyone who mocks them, even friends. His command is simple. Never allow yourself to become soft. He is deliberately hardening the next generation, believing that a unified nation built on the steppe must embody this terrifying ruthlessness to survive.
This brings us back to the Mongol concept of wealth, which Temujin articulates so clearly, dismissing the Qin focus on gold and silver.
Temujin dismisses gold and silver as soft metals. He can't grasp why they're valuable, viewing them as useless ornaments.
He argues that if a warrior wants a man's best horse, he would offer tangible, useful goods.
5 lesser horses, 6 bows, or 2 captured slaves, not a bag of soft, useless metal. The Mongol economy, even post-conquest, is founded on tangible plunder, utility, and immediate transfer of valuable assets.
It's a sharp contrast with the abstract bureaucratic wealth system of the Qin, and the shift from this purely nomadic worldview to ruling a massive settled state necessitates a new form of law that Genghis defines against the Qin system.
Chen Yi, the crime boss, challenges Genghis on the nature of Qin law, which primarily protects nobles from each other, and Genghis clarifies that his strength is the law.
The strong rule, Chenyi. Those who are not strong dream of it.
He explains that while the Qin have laws that protect what he views as parasites, his system demands that his warriors only take from enemies, never from their own tribe. This is the foundation of the strict internal discipline needed for a perpetual war machine.
And this framework leads Genghis to articulate his core strategic philosophy, explaining why he made the crucial decision to spare Batu.
The city Khazar promised to save.
Right.
He tells Chen Yi plainly, "My word is iron." But he explains the deeper, brilliant tactic behind selective destruction. If death is all I offer, they have no choice but to fight to the last man.
By sparing even one city, like Batu, he creates the option of surrender.
A viable alternative to suicidal resistance. This option allows him to conquer quickly, saving time, men, and infrastructure, rather than having to fight every city to its ruin, which is what happened at Yanking when his word was broken.
So we see the absolute transformation. The ultimate implication here is that Genghis recognizes that sheer personal power is not enough to maintain a state of this scale. It needs to be codified.
Exactly. He understood the necessity of a codified, enduring law, what would become the Yasa. He declares that if future leaders, including his own descendants, do not adhere strictly to the Yasa, then the power of the state will be shattered and come to an end.
That shows his visionary grasp of statecraft.
Building a nation requires more than just a powerful Khan. It requires a binding institutional code that transcends individual will.
Here's where it gets really interesting. We've seen Genghis Khan consolidate tribal rivalries, navigate treacherous family dynamics, and launch a military revolution. The critical turning points were tactical. The shift from fighting men to fighting walls. And political. The absolute necessity of confronting internal corruption and succession. The key innovations were the tactical use of deception, the brutal psychological strategy of the 3 tenths, the absolute necessity of admitting logistical failure with the flood.
And the brutal lessons in leadership brought on by the succession crisis and
Yeah.
the assassination attempt. The synthesis is clear. Genghis Khan's success was not merely brute force. It was his unparalleled ability to absorb and synthesize external knowledge.
He took siegecraft from a Qin mason like Lian.
Adopted advanced military intelligence from Hosa and Chen Yi, and combined that external knowledge with a ferociously disciplined cavalry that could adapt instantly.
And his immediate and ruthless enforcement of his word, symbolized by the burning of Yanking, demonstrates that for Genghis, sovereignty was defined by absolute, swift obedience.
He turned his personal will into state policy.
His transformation is complete. He entered this period as a tribal leader struggling against family dissent and exited as the architect of an empire, but one built on perpetual motion and conquest.
But precisely. Genghis Khan transformed tribal rivalry into nationhood, but he realized that a unified power built on the principles of speed and conquest required constant tension and outward expansion to survive.
If the war stops.
If the war stops, the disciplined tribes risk turning on one another, falling back into the old grudges and rivalries he sought to erase. That raises an important question for us to consider, tying the conquest back to the nature of governance. Can a unified power, built on the principles of speed and conquest, ever truly find peace.